Hey everyone, welcome back to Portal of Wisdom. I am back today with another story for you. So if you are new to the channel, like and subscribe and click that little post notification bell so you get alerted when I post new videos. And now on to today's story. Today we are going to talk about Wild West legend Burt Alvord, who was a practical joker, a lawman, and a train robber. So Albert Burt Alvord was born in California on September 11th, 1867. His father was a mechanic for the mining companies and also a prospector. And the family moved around a lot and they followed the boomtown mines wherever his father found work. So they moved a lot. And in some of these locations, Burt's father served as a constable and a justice of the peace, and they eventually moved to Pima County, Arizona in 1879, and then soon to Tombstone, Arizona, which is down in Cochise County. So Burt spent time working at the OK Corral when he was in his teenage years, and he got to know the town folk pretty well, and it was said that he had witnessed the shooting at the OK Corral in 1881. Of course, at that time, Burt would have been in his early teen years, and if you know about the shooting at the OK Corral in 1881, it was between, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday and the Clanton gang. And I guess they haven't really been able to substantiate for sure that Burt saw the shooting at the OK Corral go down, but they have substantiated that he did work around this time at the OK Corral. So, anyhow, soon after that, in 1886, he was recruited to be a deputy sheriff. It was said that Burt helped provide the needed muscle for the sheriff, but he was not particularly smart, noble, temperate, or unselfish, was what people had said around this time. So it was said that he made many decisions as a deputy that weren't very prudent or showed his lack of experience or lack of polished nature. Although he did help round up and capture or kill many outlaws and cattle rustlers. So in the 1890s, he became a lawman in towns like Fairbank and Pierce, Arizona, which are still in the same general area, not too far from Tombstone. In 1896, he married Lola Ochoa and bought a ranch and again became a Cochise County Sheriff's deputy. And a couple years later, though, his father died, and it seemed to set off a new direction in Burt's life. And in December of 1899, he finally resigned as the deputy of Cochise County, and he also left his wife. So prior to that, he had recently formed an outlaw gang with some outlaws, Billy Stiles, Bill Downing, and Three-Fingered Jack Dunlop. And these were men that he had pursued as a lawman, and toward the later part of his lawman years, he was actually in cahoots with them. So they committed many armed robberies, and on February 15th of 1900, Three-Fingered Jack Dunlop was killed by lawman Jeff Milton during a botched train robbery in Fairbank, Arizona. So eventually, Alvord was captured and he was taken to the Tombstone jail, but Billy Stiles rode into town and he shot the deputy on duty at the jail, and he freed 24 men from the jails, including Burt. So it was said that Burt Alvord was pretty good with his six-shooter. And if you tied a bottle to a tree with a string, it was said that Burt could shoot the string with his right-hand six-shooter, and he could use his left-hand six-shooter and shoot the bottle before it hit the ground. So pretty quick reflexes if he could shoot the string and then hit the bottle with another gun before it hit the ground. So he was an outlaw that liked to play practical jokes too. Once Burt and friend Matt Burtz sent a telegram to Tombstone stating, "The bodies of Burtz and Alvord will be arriving on the Bisbee stage this afternoon." So the locals assumed that they had been killed in a gunfight, and a mass of townspeople gathered and waited for the stage, and they told stories about the pair, including many nice memories of their law-abiding days. And when the stage arrived, the mischievous pair jumped out smiling and said, "Our bodies have arrived. We never go anywhere without them." And they escaped while the crowd was dumbfounded. So that was one of their practical jokes. And another notorious event that Burt Alvord was involved in was a wrestling match in Bisbee, Arizona. So Burt and a friend, Irishman named Biddy Doyle, they found a very muscular miner who was willing to lose a wrestling match for a decent payday. So the match took place in a manure patch, as that was the only ground soft enough to wrestle on. So Biddy was to wrestle this big miner in a David versus Goliath type of match. Well, of course, they didn't practice what they had planned to do, which would have been smart if they had somewhat of a plan. Instead, in round one, as it kicked off with little Biddy Doyle as the underdog at 20-1 odds and lots of bets being made, during early round one, Biddy rolled on top of the miner and he got a little carried away and he shoved the miner's face down into the horse manure. And the big guy called it quits right away instead of fight back, and the whole crowd knew it was fixed because it was over before it hardly had started. So during all the commotion, Alvord and Biddy were able to escape to Tombstone with the money. So some of the towns around did know Burt as a law-abiding citizen and a lawman from his prior years, so some of his hadn't really made it to all of the towns around. So, anyhow, as a lawman in Pierce, Arizona, many of the local citizens had no idea that he had started to delve into or onto the other side of the law. So, also, many people didn't think of him as a very keen or smart man, just thought of him more as burly and able. And while still a lawman in Pierce, Arizona, Burt planned and pulled off a train robbery with his gang at Cochise Station, and it netted nearly $30,000 in gold. This robbery was on September 11th, 1899, and it happened later in the evening or night. So Alvord had cleverly planned his alibi. He was in the back room of Schwertner's saloon playing poker, and I believe this was in Wilcox, Arizona. So he was playing poker with Matt Burtz, Billy Stiles, and Jack Downing. And this story is prior to Downing being shot. So the porter would carry a round of drinks into the back room, and I believe the back room had doors that sealed it off. So the porter would go into the room, and as he was heading in, he would announce to everyone in the saloon that Burt Alvord and the boys were in the middle of a serious poker match, and then he would return with a round of empty glasses from the prior round of drinks in the back room. So while this was going on, and the porter went back and forth now and then announcing that a serious poker game was going on with Burt and the boys, and while this was going on, Burt and the boys had slipped out the side window and into the night to rob the train at Cochise Station. After the robbery, they all returned to the saloon and resumed their poker game after climbing back into the side window. When word of the robbery reached town, someone said that they should let Constable Burt Alvord know, and they said Burt was involved in a serious poker game at Schwertner's saloon. And when they came into the back room to tell Burt, Burt acted noticeably shocked as his poker game was interrupted, and he said, "Great Scott!" And he pointed his fingers to his train robber buddies and said, "I need volunteers for a posse. You, and you." And he deputized his buddies immediately, and they rode off into the night, supposedly looking for the trail of the bandits from the train robbery. And of course, they didn't find them. And Burt wanted to make sure, though, that the gang didn't start to spend any of this money freely around town and attract any suspicion. So he took their gold that they had gotten from the train robbery and he buried it, and he felt like they needed to lie low for a little while. So anyhow, obviously he was out there. He was pretending to look for these bandits that they were the actual bandits from the train robbery. But anyhow, so what happened at this point? Burt feels pretty good about himself. He feels like he pulled off the perfect crime. But a Wells Fargo detective started snooping around and questioning people, including the porter that had served the drinks in the poker game. And the porter eventually confessed to his role in establishing the alibi. But before charges could be brought, the porter decided to flee the territory, probably worried about his life from one side or the other. So at this point, I don't believe that Burt knew that the cat was out of the bag, but it couldn't really be proven yet. Burt felt pretty good about his train robbery skills and plans, and he decided to pull another one at Fairbank, Arizona on the evening of February 15th, 1900. Burt sent the Owens brothers, Three-Fingered Jack, Bravo Juan, and Bob Brown to do the dirty work. And as they tried to rob the express car, they didn't count on legendary lawman Jeff Milton being in the car. And the bandits pretended to be drunken cowboys, and they opened fire on Milton, seriously wounding him. But he managed to grab his Wells Fargo 10-gauge shotgun as he fell, and he was able to pump some lead into the outlaws. And the outlaws ran away with no money and a lot more lead than they came with. And Three-Fingered Jack was very bad, in very bad shape. And he was left by his friends near the trail to die. And a posse was formed pretty quick, and on the trail they found Three-Fingered Jack Dunlop. And Jack was pretty upset about being left by his pals, that he gave testimony against them to the posse as he lay there dying. And this testimony included details even of the Cochise station train robbery too. So this led to the arrest of Burt Alvord and the supposed proof that was needed to prove that he was involved in that train robbery also. And Burt was sent to the Yuma Territorial Prison, where I believe he served a couple of years. So the recovery of the loot remained a mystery, but the citizens of Willcox, Arizona, and nearby Schwertner's saloon thought that it was buried somewhere nearby. But after Burt got out of prison, he came by Willcox to say hi to some of his old friends, and then he left for Central America. So it appears maybe he appeared and dug up some or possibly all of the hidden loot. And if not, there still could be some loot buried nearby Willcox or Pierce or Cochise. But it was said after he left the area, after he said hello to some of his friends, It was said that he then made his way out to his sister's place, his sister Mary Shout's house out in Los Angeles, California. And at that point, he changed his name to Tom Wright, and it was said he borrowed some money from his sister to go to Panama. So I'm not sure why he would need to borrow some money from his sister if he had just unearthed his buried loot, unless he couldn't find it or he couldn't remember where he buried it or something along those lines possibly. But it was said that he went to Panama in late 1905 and he worked on the Panama Canal, and then he disappeared from history until someone found the rest of the story. A newspaper clipping from the Graham Guardian from July 29th of 1910. And the article references a letter sent to a friend named Homer Dubois of Los Angeles, who knew Alvord in Arizona and also in Brazil, where it was said Alvord was helping build a railway into the Amazon. So the letter was dated Cristobal Canal Zone, June 28th, and it read as follows: Burt Alvord died in Barbados positively, and the American consul at Bridgetown, the capital, has $800 or $900 in gold that Burt had. His sister could get this if she could prove her claim. She is supposed to live in Los Angeles. Bravo Juan, a companion of Alvord, died recently up the Amazon. So that's what the letter said. But the news article did say that Burt died of yellow fever 3 months prior to the news article in Barbados. So that is the story of Burt Alvord, the lawman, outlaw, Panama Canal builder, and Amazon Railroad worker in the later part of his life. So he had a lot of adventures in his life and probably lives on in a lot of the history books in Arizona.